What's up? It's PJ with Want the Change, Be the Change, and I'm here because you guys have been asking me a lot on my Instagram on what started me to lose 210 pounds and brought me on my weight loss journey. And I kind of wanted to give you guys my story of what happened to me that brought me to this point in my life. So it all started in January of 2015. I was working and I had a job where I was sitting all the time, and I noticed I had started to feel a lot of pain in my lower back. This went on for about 3 weeks until the pain got so bad that I couldn't even stand up without physically crying. So what I did about the pain is I waited around, and then I finally ended up going to our local urgent care where they had taken a look at my lower back and realized that I had a cyst above my tailbone. So after they evaluated me at urgent care, they went ahead and they gave me some antibiotics and some pain medicine and sent me home to see if I took the antibiotics for a week or so, if the cyst would go ahead and go away up on its own rather than having to have it surgically removed. After taking the medication for a few weeks, I went ahead and went back to urgent care because the pain had gotten so bad that I just couldn't even stand up anymore on my own. And at that point, they decided that they needed to remove the cyst. So the urgent care decided to go ahead and remove my cyst there that day. The doctor had lanced into my back and had realized that when he cut into it that there was a horrible smell, and had realized that there was actually fecal matter in my cyst. At this point, when he realized that, he knew that he no longer could handle this operation and went ahead and sent me to the ER. When I arrived at the ER and they took me back to the examination room, they had realized that the cyst was a lot worse than they initially thought, and they needed to remove it right away. The doctor had realized that it actually was 3 inches wide and 6 inches deep into my tailbone, and they thought that it may have burst into my colon. They spent 3.5 hours removing this cyst out of me, which was very painful because at this point they had no longer given me any kind of numbing agent. So I had doctors cut and tear at my lower tailbone and have to remove this cyst and then fill it full of gauze. So they had to pack a 3-inch wide and 6-inch deep into my tailbone full of gauze with scissors, which was not very pleasant. After they had removed the cyst, they thought that it would be best for me to see a specialist to make sure that I would not need surgery on my colon because of how deep the cyst had actually went into my tailbone. A few days later, I had a follow-up exam with a specialist. When I went into the specialist at this point, he had prescribed me antibiotics and pain medicine and told me that it was not bad enough to where my colon actually was ruptured. A few days after being home and being on antibiotics and the pain medication, I started to become very ill. I couldn't stand up anymore. Anytime I would move, I would throw up. I was lightheaded. I had blurred vision. I couldn't keep anything in my system. After this going on for a couple of days, I called my surgeon and I said, hey, I need to come back for a follow-up appointment because I'm not getting any better. In fact, I'm actually starting to feel a lot worse. So when I went back for my follow-up appointment, at this point, I could barely stand up. I actually had to be wheeled into the doctor's office because I had been throwing up so much that my tongue actually had split in half down the center, and I was bleeding because my mouth was so dry. Once seeing the specialist, he realized that I had something else going on besides just this cyst, and he thought the best thing would be to send me to the ER and to get blood work and an x-ray done on my tailbone to see exactly what was going on. From the specialist's office, I went to the ER where I was wheeled in and vomited 6 to 7 times in between getting my blood drawn and having x-rays taken. At that point, the doctor said, we can't really admit you because we don't know what's wrong, so they sent me home at that point. Before I could even get out of the hospital parking lot, my doctor had called me and explained, you need to go directly to the ER. They need to take care of you right away. At this point, I was very concerned because I still did not know what was going on. I turned around and went directly back to the ER where 2 nurses waited for me and wheeled me directly back into the ER where they tried to put in 2 IVs in me for 3 hours. My body was so dehydrated and I was so overweight at this time that they couldn't find a vein in me. So they poked and prodded for 3 hours. The first one went in all right in my vein. The rest of them, they tried my hands, my legs, in between my toes, anywhere they could. But no luck for 3 hours, 3 different nurses, and it was a horrible experience for them trying to just find a vein to get fluids back into my system. At this point, my doctor came and talked to me and asked me, what were your plans when you left the ER from your blood work and your x-rays? I told him that I was going to go home and take a pain pill and relax until he had called me with my results. He explained to me that if I would have went home and taken that pain medicine, I would have been dead in 20 minutes. When the doctor explained this to me, I realized that at 24 years old, my unhealthy life choices had put me to the verge of death. After being in the ER for 5 hours, they went ahead and moved me to intensive care, where they started to explain to me what was really going on with my body. So your average person's blood sugar ranges anywhere from 75 to 150 being on the high side. 500, you have major organ failure, likelihood of a coma, and death. When I went into the ICU that day, my blood sugar was at 795. I had multiple doctors come into my room and explain to me that I was lucky to be alive. I had family, work friends, and everyone come by my side because they didn't think I was going to make it. And at that point, I didn't know what was going to happen to me. After many days in the ICU, I was able to get my blood sugar down to 500, which is a treatable level, but not ideal. At this point, they started to put me onto a road of recovery and explained to me that I became a type 2 diabetic. And at 24 years old, I really didn't know what that meant. I had a nurse come in and explain to me that I would be giving myself 5 shots a day. I'd be giving myself 2 shots of long-lasting insulin. While I was in the ICU, I sat with a nurse for 3 hours trying to give myself my first shot in the stomach. This is where things really started to change for me. I knew at 24 years old I was not going to live my life giving myself shots every day. I knew when I got out of that hospital I had to change, and I had to make new life choices. I had left the hospital and went back to my place and cleaned out any junk food, anything bad that I had. I knew going forward that this was a second outlook on life, and I needed to take every advantage I had on it. I started eating healthy, exercising regularly, and starting actually enjoying my life. I started to realize previously I wasn't really living my life. I was merely existing. I'd go to work, eat fast food. I wouldn't do the things I enjoyed. I basically was living to die at that point. And it wasn't until I found fitness and a healthy lifestyle I really started to live. I knew then at the age of 24, I never wanted to stick another needle in my body again. This was my second chance at life, and I needed to take advantage of it. So that's my story, guys. That's how I began my fitness journey, and really what changed my life and made me the person who I am today. When I first started, I didn't think I could do it. And I know a lot of people think they can't do it as well. But when you really put your mind to it, it's a lot easier than you think. Through this YouTube channel, I want to give you guys tips and advice on how I lost my weight. I want to show you guys that anything's possible if you put your mind to it. I sit here today at 26 years old, healthy as I've ever been, diabetes free, and living an amazing life. I want to show you guys that just because you're in a situation doesn't mean you can't change it. And that's what my channel is about. If you want the change in life, you have to be the change. No one's going to be it for you.